It's going.
There it is.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Trek Con. We've got Armin Shimerman, Nana Visitor, Alexander Siddig, Ira Steven Behr, and of course, Jake Sisko.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Fine.
We're all good.
Awesome.
Really good,
Well.
thank you.
So we got all of our coyote
Thanks, Ryan.
talk out of the way ahead of time. So I did want to bring up something to start us off that is kind of old news, but you know, that's what we do. And that's the Deep Space Nine documentary. I know it came out last year, but Cirroc and I and the fans on Seventh Rule still talk about it every day. It was hugely impactful. It was supremely insightful. And we talk about it. We think about it constantly. So the first thing I kind of wanted to bring up was revisiting it. I know the interviews were a few years ago and the premiere was last year. Revisiting it, was there something that you wish that you had said or added that you didn't, or you just hadn't thought of at the time, or in hindsight you look back and you say, you know, I would have liked to add this thing or an addendum? And I know Ira had to look through hours and hours and hours and hours of footage and whittle it down, you know, so he's probably got a ton of stuff.
I think I probably said it. I talked a lot, but it's just, I don't know. Ira, what will you do? Will you ever use that other stuff?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Cool.
indeed. The plan is, and obviously COVID has kind of interfered. We were supposed to have a conference, a Zoom with Dave Zappone and all the documentary guys about 2 days ago that I had to cancel because the kids were in town. But next week we're going to do it. There's being work done on all the interviews because there's so much stuff. There's so much good stuff. Obviously, we could not use. So we're doing the entire writer's room. I know everyone, we talked about this now, seems like forever, but yeah, we're going to put out the entire, or almost the entire 4.5, 5 hours of the writer's room to really make people suffer. You know, you have to be a masochist. If they really want to know what it's like to be in a writer's room without the way we did it in the movie, which was we made it nice and linear and simple and clear. But that's not how a writer's room really functions. It's chaos and thoughts going every which way. So we're going to put that out, and we're going to hopefully put out extended interviews that you guys did, because it would be a shame for it to just disappear.
Everybody's going to love more writer's room stuff. That was such a shock to people how amazing and awesome and fun that was to be a part of that process. I think it was definitely a standout.
Can I ask a question? Having never been in a writer's room, can I ask a question? Which is, because I've always heard that it was chaos, that it is everybody, you know, throwing out ideas. Was it because you were the showrunner, Ira? Did you manipulate is the wrong word, steer the conversation a certain way? How did you say to Robert, for instance, no, let's not go in that direction. Let's go in a different direction. Were you the pilot, or does everybody just throw stuff and eventually a consensus is formed?
Well, in a writer's room, obviously someone has to have the final decision, you know, or else you'd be, Robert and Ron would have been arguing for 5 hours on one minute point, you know. So someone has to have the final decision. And that would be me in terms of the Deep Space Nine writer's room. But what I used to say back in the day, and I'd rather we were talking about Deep Space Nine than the documentary, to be honest. But back in the day, what I used to say was, if someone not affiliated with the show walked in to the writer's room and just stood there listening for 5 minutes, they should not be able to tell who the showrunner was, who the executive producer is, who the story editor is. It should have just been, you know, the best idea winning, you know, at all times. And that's how I like to run the room. But there's no doubt at some point someone has to say, this is what we're going to do. And then everyone bitches and moans and complains. And then you just keep going forward. But in the writer's room for the documentary, obviously it was a way different thing than in reality. Because if you're going to go in the next day to have a story break, usually the writers know what we're going to talk about. We know the idea of what the show is we're going to be discussing, even if it's just we're going to do a Nana show, or we're going to do a Nana Bajoran show about the finding a Cardassian who was responsible for a war crime. Whatever it is, we would know what we were talking about. With the documentary, all I said was, watch the final episode, so everyone knows where the characters ended up. And as you could tell from watching the documentary, some people did not even do that. They clearly did not remember where we left off. So it was much more difficult in a way, or not more difficult, but it was really starting out with nothing. I mean, I came in with the idea just on my own that Nog was going to be killed at the beginning, and that we were going to do something with Section 31. And Ron came in with the idea of everyone coming back because Quark told them that something was happening and they had to come back, and those two ideas wound up getting meshed together.
So we have a couple quick hellos. Number one is our friend Melissa Longo.
Hello, Melissa.
Melissa.
Also, we had no idea, but we've got a birthday coming up next week. Nancy tells us that Nana's having a birthday.
That's right.
Do you have any minor plans for the next week?
Just house things. What I really want to do is put up lattice. So there's going to be a lattice. Matthew and I, my husband and I, are going to be installing a massive amount of lattice in the garden area. So that's my big birthday plan, my birthday week plan. And a sweet Jane's cake. I'm getting that.
Wow, you are wild.
I'm wild.
Wild, man. You know how to have a good time.
Lattice and a whipped cream strawberry cake from.
Okay.
Please take videos. We all want to watch.
TikTok videos. Hey, Sid, so you have started doing something that is just taking fandom by storm. You're doing this thing with your website, Sid City. You're starting to do these plays. First, you did one with Andy. Then you did one with Cirroc. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about that? Because it's amazing.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. We've been doing a social club for about, I don't know, 16, 17 weeks now. It feels like, a long time. Ever since this thing we shut down, we just started. And basically, people get together, about 200 people every week for 4 hours, twice a week, 2 hours each time. And we just chat. Like you see in the chat thing here, people are just chatting to each other. Now they're all great friends. They know each other very well. People have actually made a bunch of friends, which is kind of the aim of it. But I was talking to someone who happened to be my wife's oldest friend. They knew each other when they were 2. And he is a massive Trek fan, a massive geek, and is incredibly knowledgeable. And I just said, well, listen, why don't you do some fan fiction? We'll act out for you. And because a lot of people are doing fan fiction, and in fact, people are submitting fan fiction to us, and we will do readings of them just to give people a sense of what they sound like talked in Zoom. I said the only thing you have to do is make it Zoom appropriate, so everybody has to be in different rooms, in boxes, so that it's a Zoom original production, a little thing. And he wrote it. He's written 4 episodes, and we've done 2. And we are going to have a new guest coming next week, who's always going to be a surprise. And Cirroc came last week. We're taking breaks, so it's not every single week. It's been really good fun. And it's only 15, 20 minutes each thing. And people really love talking about it. So it's just an alternate reality that doesn't mess with the characters too much, but touches on things that we couldn't touch on in the original series. So that's kind of great fun.
You know, I was hoping Cirroc would jump in and talk about his experience, but it looks like he's having technical difficulties. This happened one other time, and he changed his name to Garrick is messing with my Wi-Fi. And now in the comment section, people are saying Garrick strikes again. So, so they know his antics. He'll be popping back up. Oh,
he will.
We'll see how he's doing in just a second here. Jam signal as Garrick strikes again, huh, Cirroc?
Oh, yeah, he's always jamming my signal like that. He doesn't like me sharing information. I try closing all my windows. Hopefully that clears things up.
Great. We were just talking about Sit City and the stage reading you just did. How was it?
It was a lot of fun and pretty accurate. I thought that it was a good pickup on the storylines. And, Matt and those guys did a really good job fleshing out the characters and the script, and it was a lot of fun working with you, Sid.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great fun, and we haven't publicized it because it's not, it's not lore. It's just us reading fan fiction, and we prefer not to draw too much attention to ourselves. But eventually, that will happen. We're aware of that, and that will happen by word of mouth if people choose to. But we generally haven't talked about it.
Should we take the link out of the description box that we already have down here right now?
No, you're free. They can do whatever they want now. It's just I didn't want whoever the corporate people were that like to come and rain on people's parades to rain on ours, and they haven't. And the kind of cat is out of the bag, and we're halfway through the whole thing, and it's just one fan's expression of how he would like to see this universe go. And we will do another fan's expression of it. And then we'll do another fan's expression. So what we're doing is just a ton of books on Zoom, if you like, because we've got all this fantastic fiction out there that people are writing, and it's got some wonderful modernized ideas, about LGBTQ+, et cetera, which are interwoven into the stories and the characters. And it's immense fun, and I think that some of these guys deserve a little, a drive around the block, a test drive of their ideas. And it brings a lot of people enormous joy during a time when a lot of people, frankly, really very depressed right now, we found out.
I don't think anyone's going to care, Sid. I have to tell you. I don't think they care about
the powers that be, he means.
The powers that be. A flying... they just don't care. So
I'm really glad to hear it.
As much as I'd be very surprised at this point if they are juggling. They have world domination in mind in terms of Trek, and
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It would be very misanthropic if they did do anything, given the situation we're in and the kind of a pleasure it brings to so many people. So it's it's not millions, it's not viral, it's just a few thousand people.
But even plays, I went into a meeting with Sid in Sid City, and I have to say it's absolutely fascinating. I haven't seen anyone else do something like this, but what happens is it's not a Sid love fest, let's talk about me. Sid is actually interviewing in depth all the people who come in, asking about their life, asking how they're doing, how has this impacted your work, what have you noticed? And it's a fascinating window into Russia and Switzerland and all these different places and all these different little rooms all over the world. Everybody dealing with the pandemic and their feelings, and it's really, it's
lovely, isn't it? It's lovely hearing about them.
You're lovely what you do. It's really,
thank you.
Really good work.
We have people singing songs. Yesterday, because I do it on Friday and Tuesday. Yesterday, a guy took us to his work on an iPhone, and he does nanotechnology, So he got suited up in the clean room and showed us every instrument he uses and how he uses them and what he does. And it was fascinating. And we get these little vignettes of people's lives, because one woman showed us her garden and she's growing pineapples. And I mean, it's just fascinating. It's one day it'll be a lovely document for some kind of anthropologist to go, oh my goodness, that's what happened during the pandemic.
Yep, it will.
Yes, but I did it once with Sid. I did the daytime one with you. I'd like to come back and do the one that you said that starts at 6 o'clock, or the one that's more global.
We'd love it, Ira.
Yeah,
We'd love it.
The global one for sure. So
yeah, we love it.
We'll figure out, because it was so interesting to hear. You talk.
Yeah,
to
it's great.
Wasn't just about the show or Trek, just about their lives, which was kind of sweet. Really cool.
Yeah.
Now, the feedback that I've been getting from, boots on the ground in all my Star Trek fan groups and all the friends that I have that are in Star Trek fandom, Sid, they're saying that that's what makes it so special, is that it's not just a moment with Sid. It's like Sid is treating it like a moment with John or a moment with Stacy, and he's talking with them and spending quality time with them. And it's a very humanizing experience. And you're right. You guys are saying people are so depressed right now. It's tough. People are frustrated. People are mentally unwell, even if they think they might be fine. Our moods are lowering, and things like what Sid is doing and what you guys are doing right now and talking to everybody today.
That's why we're here. Yeah. It's great fun.
Thank you so much for that. Armin, I wanted to ask you, what have you been doing to kind of keep yourself busy lately? I mean, Sid's doing Sid City. Cirroc is getting harassed by me on the 7th rule constantly. What are you up to?
Well, besides my teaching, which I mentioned a moment ago, most of my days are filled up with rewrites. I sold a novel back at Christmas, and my editor has been sending me ideas for rewrites. And so it takes her about 10 days to do a pass, and then it takes me about another 10 days to look at her ideas, most of which I accept, some of them I reject, and trying to find the perfect line, the perfect sequence of words that make a perfect line. A lot of my time is spent writing or research, because it's a historical novel, historical mystery, which will come out probably in November. It's actually 3 books. One book will come out each year.
Wow.
So that's mostly what I've been doing is research and writing and teaching. Thank you for asking.
Wow.
Absolutely. What can you tell us anything? Oh, sorry, Nana, what were you saying?
No, I'm so impressed with what everybody, you're writing novels, and you're out and doing Sid City. Everybody, Cirroc is doing this. I'm grooming my poodles into different animals.
Yes, you did exquisite things with food, and you did exquisite things with food, and you did wonderful things with people who are in need as well. So
thank you, Armin. That's very sweet, but I think I better up my game.
Well, because we have so much time on our hands, as someone once said to me, now is the time to do the things you always said you meant to do, because now you have time. Now no one is impinging upon you. The phone is ringing off the hook. You don't have to go and do social things, 24/7. So now is the time to do what you always said you wanted to do. This is my 5th, 6th, 7th novel. So this was a novel that was inspired 20 years ago, and it's 20 years in the making. Finally found a publisher, which was nice, and it's turning, because of the editor, who I'm in great appreciation of, because of her suggestions, the book is getting richer. The 3 books, it's actually 3 books.
Congratulations.
Are you
Can you tell us what the time is, the historical period? Can you?
Because you can guess, Ira, but thank you for that question. You can guess what historical period is. It shouldn't take all of you more than a second to guess what historical period's in. So it takes place in Elizabethan times. Wow, what a surprise! And it's a historical novel, so everything in the novel is researched incredibly minutely. Everything, tables, what they ate, what the forks look like. Everything is historically correct. And I don't think I'm giving away too much by saying when my two historical characters, a man named Dr. John Dee, who's becoming much more famous and less infamous as centuries go by, and a very young William Shakespeare, find themselves in this sort of spy mission, although it's not spy so much. They go to investigate the loyalty of a Catholic count in Elizabethan times, and because Elizabethan times were famous for the antipathy between the Catholics and the Protestants, and it's a Protestant government, they're looking to find out if the count is a traitor because of his Catholic background. They go to find this count who lives on an island, and when they get to the island, we find out that everybody on the island are characters from Twelfth Night.
Terrific.
Really. Do you cool. Research historical, assistant, someone who's doing all the research for you?
No, sir. I do all the research myself. That's me as a teacher as well. When I teach Shakespeare, it's not always just about the script. It's also about the times, the culture, everything that surrounds the plays as well. Sid and I have had a couple of conversations about this in the past. And so everything is historically correct. And if it isn't, if I don't know, that's why I said my time is taken up with research, then I go online and find whatever I can that will tell me what exactly was the reality.
Wow. Well, excellent.
Ira, are you writing right now?
Well, for the past 9.5 months, believe it or not, I've been on a show that is not, is not filming yet. That I signed an NDA that I'm not allowed to talk about. So for 9.5 months, I'm working in a freaking vacuum along with a bunch of other people, and now mostly, for the past 4.5 months on Zoom. So that's what I've been doing, and then.
Oh, that's exciting!
Well, it's exciting with a small e at this stage of the game. I think what how it looks, the future, and all that. But I mean, look, the fact that during a pandemic, I've been able to have something to focus on and work. So many people. I spent so much of my time, as I'm sure we all do, bucking up my friends and my family and myself, trying to be positive in these stressful times. So the thought of, if I didn't have this to focus on, I would be one of those people who would be like looking to open a vein. So it's just very fortunate. It's just such a weird position. It was weird enough having to sign an NDA. We're living in these times. TV has become, so expensive, I guess, that everyone's paranoid about anyone saying anything about anything. It's so bizarre, but such is life. That's the life that we're in now. So that's
exciting news. I'm happy.
Hey, Ira, I get the sense that you've told us the exact maximum of what you're willing to tell us about this project.
I've told them more than I want to. I'm absolutely honest. But there you go.
So I did want to ask you, Ira, a little bit more specifically about the 4 incredible actors that we have here today. When you were writing for Deep Space Nine, was there a particular aspect of each character that you most enjoyed writing about? Like, was it Jake's relationship with his father, or was it the comedy with Quark and Rom, or was there something specific in each of them that you really enjoyed the most about writing for?
Man, that's a long answer if I let it be.
Cirroc told me to ask it. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Well, look, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Obviously, one of the reasons I came on the show or agreed to do the show after my bad experience or my experience on TNG and having left that show was, and I've said this many times, I said to Mike Pillar at a Dodger game after he had me read the Bible before the script was even written was, I had this idea of making Amorous, who was Bashir, and O'Brien, to two guys who were totally different. I said, Mike, if you let me work these two characters and have them start out not having anything in common or liking each other, and then as the show goes on, make them the tightest, most interesting real friendship that we had ever seen in the franchise, I will come back. And he said, why would I have trouble with you focusing on a friendship in Star Trek? I think that's a great idea. So if it wasn't for Sid's character, if Mike had said no, I don't know if I ever would have gone on that 7-year journey with everyone. So that character means a lot to me. I also, because Bashir was problematic to so many people at the beginning.
To put it mildly.
Studio and from the fans, and not on us, because that's how we wanted to write him, and I'm not pointing to myself. I mean, Mike from the very beginning, Mike, Rick, all of us, wanted to have someone who evolves, actually changes over the course of the series. Everyone just had such a negative, or lots of people had this negative impact, or they just didn't like the character. But we stuck with it, and the character grew, and we knew people would wind up loving him, and so that was important. So it was just watching the change in the character as he went from that, he was almost a kid. I mean, if we didn't have Cirroc on the show, if we didn't have a 13-year-old kid on the show, Bashir would have been the young man, the youngest person on the show, it seemed. And so watching him grow, I thought that was really interesting. We liked doing that. Jake the whole thing was, we said at the beginning, he was not going to be Wesley Crusher. That was the idea. He was not going to be Wesley. We were going to make him a character that people actually wanted to see. And it started out, it was tough at the beginning when he was small or smaller. The relationship with his father was fantastic. Thank God we had Nog, we had Aaron, and we got to do a lot of fun things with them. But it took us a while to believe that they could carry, a B story, that it would be a B story that actually had validity for the show. But we came to realize that was the case. So just, again, watching his growth and watching him grow up on the show and change and deepen, that was a lot of fun. And I gave him and Nana the last shot of the show, which, was, I felt was a little gift to the two of them. Originally, it was going to end in Quark, with Quark just being in the bar and being that thing that never changes. To Quark, it doesn't matter who's there, who's not there. His life is his life, and I like that thought of continuity. But it just, as we got closer, it didn't have the poetry that I felt the show needed for that last final shot. Originally, it was going to be him at the bar cleaning, and then pull back up to the second level, blah, 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 which would have been nice, but I think we needed something with the station. So, to see that kid who was this little kid at the beginning, and then see him having gone through what he went through, losing his dad, at least for the time being, and still be upright and still looking forward to what happens next, and not being alone. We don't want him to be alone. And Nana, Kira's so powerful and strong. We thought that was the one we should put him with. So that was great, the ending of that. Nana, Kira, from the very beginning, there was all this talk about Michelle Forbes that I never really worked with her, so it didn't have much of an impact on me one way or the other. I mean, I like the actress, but, it wasn't like a problem for me that didn't work out. And then, as I've said many times, I thought that the way Nana conducted herself for 7 years as a human being and as a professional was very impressive. The character was so, even before the whole thing, I know it's a bunch of guys writing women. I understand it would have been great to have some women on staff. It was a different time. Trust me, if there was, well, we won't go into it, but I thought she was a great character, and I like, this is going to sound a little bit, but I think that we softened her up a little bit, which I thought was good. She was so angry at the beginning. That's when we used to talk about she's the toughest woman in the galaxy. John Wayne, she was our John Wayne. She'd do that walk. Good grief. You don't want to get in the way of that walk. So it was always good. The whole Bajoran thing, the Bajorans were not going to, as much as it was supposed to be get the Bajoran in the Federation, Kira was like the living embodiment why they didn't need the Federation. They didn't need the Federation at all. So, just writing that I thought was kind of interesting. That character representing, in a way, the strength and the spirituality and all the aspects of Bajor. And then Quark, what can I say? I said, we're going to have a Ferengi on the show. That I remember telling Mike, I said, I got to tell you, I think it's a bad idea. I had written, on TNG, I wrote the character that Max played in Captain Holiday, which is the whole, I couldn't understand why they wanted a Ferengi at the beginning. And then, as soon as I saw the whole thing between, one of the first scenes I wrote on the show was a scene between Odo and Quark for Babel. And, it all suddenly, the coin dropped. And I didn't know, the stories that I know that Armin always tells about how he did some, TNG and being a Ferengi and how he hated his performance and all that stuff. I didn't see that performance.
Thank God.
Know that performance. that wasn't hanging over. I heard about it, but I never really.
You would have fired me on the second episode if you had seen it.
So it was just like, okay, I get it, and we had a lot of heroes on the show. We had a lot of heroes on the show, and it was great to have a character who was not your typical hero, who could play other things, not just humor. I don't like the word comedy as much, but humor, but who is very human, and I still say that besides O'Brien, the most human people on the show were the Ferengi. And obviously, as we went on, Quark became a spokesperson who was able to talk truth to power and actually kind of point out some of the flaws in the Federation philosophy and thinking that I thought were very cogent and very pointed. And he had an authority that made it work. So, they were all fun to write for.
Jamal Taylor, one of our favorite people here, he just brings up one quick point. It looked like, Armin, you're about to say something. I'll take this down in a second. He says, the whole show felt like most of the characters were there healing themselves and each other unintentionally. Nobody chose to be there but Quark. Just thought that was a really good point. It did seem like you guys all kind of ended up coming together. Armin, were you going to say something before I did that?
Well, before I ask the question I want to ask, I think there's a similarity between what the world is going through now and our show, in the sense that we are forced to live together and deal with our problems as a entity, as an ensemble, whether it's dealing with the pandemic or dealing with the fact that you're quarantined on a space station. And it's just that, what you said, Ryan. We either we're going to kill each other or we're going to help each other survive. So I totally agree with what you just said. I have a question for Ira, because while you were talking, something occurred to me that never occurred to me before, and perhaps at just this moment, and because Sid was in front of me as well.
He's coming back, by the way. He just sent a message that he had an internet crash. He's right back.
Sure. But here's my question for Ira, which it's more for Ira than for Sid anyway. Why were there no scenes between Quark and Bashir?
I mean, it's not like we had, had a meeting in the writer's room and said, okay, the thing we have to make sure that we never, ever have, because that would be bad.
Build that really well.
We must.
Just because Sid was sitting here a moment ago, and you were sitting there, and you were talking about Sid's character, which lovely, and about everybody else, also lovely. But I don't remember really doing. I must have had one or two, obviously, but really in 7 years, I don't think, considering that our establishments were across the hall from each other, we didn't have much to say to each other.
I will say this, Armin. The one thing that the last, how many years it's been now, where I've actually thought a lot about the show, because I've had to think a lot about the show. There are so many things, in hindsight, that I wish we had done, that I wish I had not. I'm not even talking about fighting for. I just wish that I could have seen through or taken in a certain direction. But at the same time, I have to keep reminding myself that we were doing 26 of these things a year. The show, 10 episodes is now like what a lot of these.
Right.
The cable and the premium cable and the streaming.
Right? That's so. Yeah. You're so able to do 10.
So to do 26, there were so many balls we were juggling. There were so many things we were juggling. There were so many opinions we were trying to navigate through, that things fell by the wayside. Things that could have been never happened. Things that on occasion that we even would talk about, like the friendship between Jadzia and Kira, that we never quite nailed. It got better as time went on. At least we saw them interacting together away from work, but not to the extent that we could have done it. It's just that it seemed that the show was such a departure at the time from what was considered Trek, off of this monolithic success of TNG, and we spent so much time at the beginning trying to get not just out from under its shadow, but finding the voice that was specific to this show. It took a lot of brain power. I spent 7 years thinking nothing else but Deep Space Nine, all the time, day and night. So the fact that I missed so much stuff in my head appalls me on a certain level. But at the same time, it's like, hey, that's how it went down, and that's all we have. And
Ira, not in any way am I, lambasting you for having not written a thing. I just wondered, why, but you've just now explained it. You've had so many balls in the air. There was only so many things you could do. And I'm speaking for all of us here, and probably all that are watching as well. We are very grateful for all that you did to make those stories as complete, as interesting, and now 25 years plus later, it's still marvelously relevant. Marvelously relevant.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that,
And I think that the relationship with Quark and Odo actually turned out to be one of the big friendships, even though it's not really a surface level friendship. It really plays like a friendship when you watch the banter between them.
Classic frenemies.
well, I just love seeing. I mean, and I'm not gilding the lily here. I really mean this. From the beginning, and it took me. It was years later when I realized that they weren't quite as close at the beginning as they became. But I just thought Renee, and Armin had this relationship off camera that I would see where they seemed to genuinely like each other, that they were friends. And
Beyond like, Ira. It was beyond like.
So the idea of playing them off against each other and giving them those moments, because you always knew those moments were going to work. So that was one of the joys. I mean, that was early on. I mean, we found that almost immediately. They just give them 10 lines and they made a meal of it in the most positive way.
And if I may, let me tell you a very quick story. I don't mean to interrupt, but a very quick story. When Renee and I had done a play together years before Deep Space Nine, I think we had maybe 6 words together during the course of the rehearsals and the run. I wasn't too fond of René Aubergenois doing that play. I'm sure he didn't even know that I existed when we did the play, because we had no scenes together and we were never on stage together. So, and it was a big play with a lot of people. And so that incredible romance between the two of us developed because of the show, because you put us next to each other in the makeup trailer, and we found out how much we loved each other and how much we had in common. So thank you.
See, I went under a whole different assumption. See, I thought you guys knew each other and were bonded together for years. I'm not kidding. I just thought, wow, those two guys. And to me, growing up the way I did, friendship and the bond is really important. That's why the first thing I said to Mike was, let me get Bashir and O'Brien together. So the idea that I thought we were mimicking a relationship that was already in progress just shows you that reality is a very kind of individual thing.
That actually reflects what Cirroc always says when we're reviewing our show, is that he says, and it's something we noticed from the very beginning, was that from episode 1, it seemed like Renee and Armin's characters were the ones that were already fully fleshed out, whereas the others were a work in progress more so. And it almost was because of that relationship between the two of them. It seemed you played off of each other so beautifully.
Well, look at this circumstance. We have Abbott and Costello. We have a tall, straight looking person who is all gruff and grum. And we have Costello, who's an idiot and very short. You have tall and short, you have smart and dumb. It's a perfect relationship.
I don't think you were dumb. You were anything but dumb. If you were dumb, then there would have been no sparks between you and Odo. He wouldn't have given you the time of day. The fact is that you were just so suited to one another. You completed one another. You were the wind beneath each other's wings.
I'm going to put that in my novel.
I get the tall and short of it, but I don't think the smart and dumb is at all relevant.
When I was watching the show, rewatching the show, in the beginning, I feel like Kira's character is the star of the show because she's just carrying it in the first couple of seasons. A lot of the big episodes are about her and the strength in her character. Is that something you were putting thought into like that, or it just turned out to be like that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Ira, if you guys wrote it that way, that she was going to be taking over scenes and being, like, to me, the main focal point of the show in the beginning?
I'm not sure that we ever thought about it in those terms. You know, I thought we were trying to evenly distribute. I think the one thing that we liked and that I liked a lot was the ensemble nature of the show. I love the fact that theoretically, whether we did it or not, I'm sure you could point out and say, well, in season 1 and 2, but the thought was any of these characters, except maybe Cirroc at the very beginning because he was so young, any of these characters could have been the A story for any episode. They all had the ability, you know, the acting ability, the character was interesting enough. I just thought that Kira spoke to so many things. I mean, you know, the whole show is about this, you know, this civilization, you know, this culture that had been, you know, kicked around and you know, a kind of Holocaust had happened to it, and you know, they were now bouncing back, and they were going to, you know, survive and prosper, and they were never going, you know, never again. This was never going to happen again. And she was just a really interesting character. She had the most obvious pain. I mean, Sisko had it with his, you know, having lost his wife, but he still had you. You know, he had his son. She seemed to, you know, embody the pain of oppression that we had on the show, and that oppression and fighting back from that oppression was just so fascinating to us. And she could hold her own with Avery or anyone else we put her up against as a character. But I never thought of her as or anyone really as, you know, the main thrust of the season. You know, it was the station and you know, Sisko in a way that would, you know, they were at the forefront. But it was once we hit duet, that duet and In the Hands of the Prophet, that 1-2 punch at the end of season 1.
Yes,
I thought that totally validated that third season. We had some really good episodes, and you know, I loved a lot of the episodes. Others I wasn't too fond of. But I thought we ended on a really strong note, and much of that had to do with that character.
Sid. Oh, sorry. I just want to say, Sid, thank you so much for jumping back in. There are about 50 comments about people being so happy you were back, and they're saying Sloan had released you from section.
My internet just went out for a walk and didn't tell me.
Well, thank you so much for coming back. I know it was a lot of effort to reset everything for us. Nana, sorry for interrupting you. What were you saying?
No, not at all. I just, from what Ira said, I can't hear anything Cirroc says for some reason. So, and from what Ira was saying, I thought, I really wish I could have heard what Cirroc said. But every time he talks, there's no sound.
Really?
For me. Yeah, wow. For me. Don't know why. It's some weird glitch, but just so you know, I'm not hearing it.
Now you know. Now you know what my life was like under that makeup.
With the ears?
Oh my God. Yeah, no.
I remember that, Armin. I remember coming and talking to you and you telling me, speak up, I can't hear you. And I thought, wow, really? How did they do it? How did they do it on stage? How does he know? I guess he
Look
just
at the lips. Look at the lips. Remember what the cues were in the script.
Wow.
Well, we can hear you okay, Cirroc. So I hope everybody at home can. It seems like from the comments we're seeing that they're hearing them.
Yeah, I was just saying, Nana, how wonderful you were, right out of the gate of the start of the show, and how many episodes I felt
Is
like you were
everyone frozen
the
or
lead
is no
on.
one talking?
Oh no, you really can't hear him. Oh, he was saying such. He keeps saying such nice things to you. He's gonna have to text them to you. He was saying that basically right out of the gate, it seemed like it's what we've spoken about before. He's told you on our show is that from the very beginning, you came out and were like a storm. You were this powerful presence, and Cirroc says it felt like it was your show. You're going out there, and you are Major Kira, and really owning that set. Obviously, he's saying a lot more eloquently than I am, and he didn't use the word storm, and I don't know why I brought that up, but he's saying a lot of really nice things about it.
Wouldn't it be horrible if I actually could hear him and I just wanted you to say it?
And then you say, Cirroc said it way better, Ryan.
No,
now you chased him off.
I have to say, I did a panel on women in Star Trek yesterday.
That's right.
And for so many young women, what they tell me about my character and how much of an influence it was. And I said yesterday, written by a man, written by a feminist, obviously. Right. And that collaboration was kind of amazing. It was great.
In that panel, that was with Mary Chieffo as well. And something that she said in that panel, I was working the behind the scenes side of that. And there was one specific thing that she said that made my ears perk up was she said, not just allies, but advocates as well. And did you feel as though, and I'm still kind of, I'm trying to keep up, but when she said the word advocates, I was like, that is a very important word there. Do you feel like Ira was an advocate in the 90s?
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who wouldn't call Ira a strong feminist.
Well, talk to my wife.
Bring her on.
Yeah, I'm not saying Laura didn't have something to do with it, but fact is.
I just think that Mike and Rick, I can't say enough. As much as, there were conflicts at times, they just set up so much, more than they had any idea that they were setting up. But it was all there in that goddamn pilot, that pilot, which continues to impress me. I know at the time some people thought it was too heady and not enough action and blah, blah, blah. And why are we watching a depressed man who lost his wife? And, that what does that have to do with Star Trek? But I just thought they just set up all these great characters, and it was like a gift. I considered it like, here is this huge playing field with all these personalities. Go and romp in this field and just sow as many oats as you can. And so that's all we thought we were doing. And then suddenly it became, hold on now, there's still parameters. And it's like, no, screw the parameters, man. No. You've set this thing in motion, and it's up to us to just take it into places where no one thought it was going to go, that we didn't realize it was going to go. And that's all character. Ultimately, Bashir, the Federation, blah, blah, blah. Even the Dominion, the Dominion storyline. Who cares about the Dominion unless it impacts the characters? That's when it matters. That's when it's something. It gives us, Nog loses a leg, the Klingons, have to deal with a change in leadership. I mean, there's so many things going on. I don't have to tell.
Whose idea was it, Ira, to serialize the drama?
Because that was very innovative. That TV became.
I would have to say that was something that I wanted to do. I just felt. I mean, it wasn't even an idea, Sid. It just felt natural. I
But
could not.
what had you seen that had ever done that before? I mean, I think Hill Street Blues may have done it a bit. I don't think that
It was what I used to say.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer was out, or X-Files, or.
Well, you watched a lot of MacGyver, didn't you?
It was. I kept saying from the very beginning. I think this is a line they used. Talk about dating myself. But when they did Rich Man, Poor Man, does anyone remember the miniseries that started Nick Nolte's career? I know, right? I don't know jack about anything. You need to need a seminar on the history of the business. But,
I thought you said Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah. So they called it a novel for television. And I remember being a kid and hearing novel for television because I love books. And I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do a novel for television. And when I looked at the pilot for Deep Space Nine, I said, here it is. This is it. This is going to be a novel for television. Because I just really was having a hard time on TNG. One of the things that I was having a hard time with TNG is, we would come up with these really cool stories that would then just finish in one episode, and then in the next episode it seemed like I kept calling it Bonanza television. That was my insult, which I still used in some things on Deep Space Nine, the way the show was filmed, Bonanza television. Everything shot from the waist up at times. But anyway, it just seemed like it had to be serialized. It wasn't.
How did you get away with it? Because that is the business model. The business model is to actually make standalone television. But I know, but you've got bosses. You had bosses. You had people who could have fired you.
They could fire me.
How did you get away with it?
The first day I was on TNG, I was walking down to the set, and I passed the UPM. This is day one. The UPM said, and we had just met up in Rick's office. And he said, hey, where you going? I said, I'm going down to the set. He goes, you can't. I said, what do you mean? He goes, writers aren't allowed on the set. I said, tell Rick he can fire me. That was day one. And if he had fired me, so he would have fired me. The last thing I gave a shit about was getting fired. It was like, again, it's not that difficult. It wasn't like, it was all there. It was like this show had to have. It wasn't serialized enough. Sid. That's the problem. If you want to talk about problems with the show, it should have been serialized a lot quicker than it was. But even when I talked to Mike about Bashir and O'Brien, what was that about? Serialization, taking that friendship and starting them here and ending here. As soon as he said yes to that at Dodger Stadium, the gloves were off. Before I joined the show, 6 months before anything came of it. As soon as he said yes to that, it was a serialized show in my mind. Without it even being in my mind. It was just like that's what's going to happen. We're going to do a show and things are going to change.
But Ira, Sid is right. You had a lot of blowback. That we were a syndicated show. You were going to sell to the syndicates. It was not a network show. And the syndicates wanted individual episodes that a viewer could watch, miss a couple episodes, come back and not be lost. That had to be an enormous blowback that you had to fight constantly. Sid's right about that.
If I had back end or points that it had some kind of financial impact on me, maybe I would have had a whole different point of view. But I was higher. So it didn't matter to me what the affiliates cared about. It got to the point, I've said this before, and it sounds very arrogant and it sounds very negative, but I don't really think it was. By season 5, I was telling the writing staff, we're writing the show for us. Don't care about the fans. Don't care about anyone else. The only people who can tell us whether we're succeeding or failing is us. Because no one thinks about the show as much as we do. And no one worries about the show as much as we do. Constantly. That's what we're thinking about. So believe me, we were tougher on the show than any critic, any fan. I could, episodes that people love, I can point to things that, are horrible or mistakes that we made. But again, the bottom line is, I get it, syndication. The fans were upset. But what made a better show? What made the show better? That's the only thing that mattered. What made the show better?
And we agree with you on that. We agree with you on that. It's just that there had to be something you had to fight. That's all. And we appreciate. That's what we're saying, Ira. We appreciate the fight that you made in order to give us the best show possible.
Right, but we weren't doing it for you. That's all I'm saying. We weren't doing it for anyone else.
We still got paid whether you were doing it for us or not.
Well, we are just about out of time here, friends.
Money.
So I do want to say that we really, really appreciate what you've done. Armin, very quickly, there's somebody that has been dying to ask you this question, if you could answer it relatively
2 hours.
Is what was your favorite part about playing Quark? I suppose they mean, maybe her name is Carolyn. I suppose maybe they mean the aspect, your favorite aspect or a favorite line. Or...
Well, it's going to sound trite. A lot of my stuff sounds trite, but it's true. It was the friendships that I acquired, either with the actors or with the writers or with the staff, with everybody that was on that set year after year after year. That is without doubt my fondest memory. And I'll be proud and arrogant and say I'm very proud of what I did with the character. As Ira alluded to, I was able to the best of my ability, eradicate that horrible impression I made on TNG. So, but I couldn't have done it without the writers or with everybody else, the directors, the designers, the other actors, all of that. It was an ensemble job. We worked as an ensemble, and I'm very proud of that ensemble. All of us were there together. All of us fought together. It's a long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
Not at all. Great. I do hope you guys get a chance. I'll send you the link after this to read through all the comments, because there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, and I was only able to sneak in a few very quickly. But I do hope you get a chance to scroll through the things that they've said, because you deserve to hear these things. 25 years later, it still, I'm sure, is great to be validated in what you do and what you think and say.
Something.
We do want to thank you once again for what you've done 25 years ago, what you've done since then, and what you've done today for all of us. It's very much appreciated. And you are an absolute delight. All of you are just amazing to listen to. People are using the words enthralling when they're listening to you here today, and I totally agree with that.
Are you guys signing autographs now? Are you guys going to do the?
I'll see you in the green room.
Signing autographs. Virtual autographs. Yeah, I guess not.
I guess not.
Try to avoid Shatner on your way out. He's a talker, right?
He's eating goddamn crackers and cheese. That's all.
Thank you very much.
All of you, and everyone be safe.
Love you all,
guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for being with us, guys.
It's great.
Indeed.
Cirroc and Sid, thanks so much for fighting the good fight when technology fails. You guys kept coming back. I mean, it's, I know it's frustrating sometimes, but we really appreciate it.
Yeah. All I could see was my actual reality for a second.
Oh, that's scary.
Inferred reality. Really weird.
Anyway,
some of my reactions might be delayed. I'll be laughing at awkward times.
All right. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.